Have you ever heard of emotional intelligence, or do you know what it means to be an emotionally intelligent person? Are you interested in raising kids that have emotional intelligence? And what does it even mean to have a kid who has emotional intelligence? This is a subject that Sara and I, ever since we've had kids, we've been fascinated by and really interested in becoming more emotionally intelligent. I mean, that sounds like a great idea. It sounds like a really awesome thing to have kids who are really smart when it comes to their emotions, how to manage them, and how to utilize them in a positive way. And so that's why today we wanted to introduce you to a really awesome person in the field of emotional intelligence. Her name is Stephanie Pinto. She speaks to people all over the world about this subject. She's an author. She's an international speaker. She has her own podcast. And we're just really excited to introduce you to her today, to have an in-depth discussion on not only what does it mean to be emotionally intelligent, but to give you 5 easy steps to help start becoming an emotionally intelligent parent and therefore start raising more emotionally intelligent children. But before we dive into the podcast, please take a moment, if you haven't done this already, to leave a review, to leave a comment. We love reading the comments and hearing how this podcast is impacting you and your family. And so it just means a lot to us. It really is the kind of the capital of how you move your podcast and get seen to reach other families and other people. So we appreciate you taking the time to rate it and to put your comments. And now sit back, maybe even get a pen and a notepad and get ready to learn about emotional intelligence.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello, and welcome to The Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
Hi, I'm Sara.
And today we want to hit a topic that, man, out of all our episodes, I mean, we're almost about to hit, I don't know, like 130 or something. Mm-hmm. We've alluded to it.
Yeah, we kind of talk but not like dedicated.
We've never just said, let's talk about emotional intelligence.
And I don't know why, because I love it. I love emotional intelligence. It's so important, and I'm so excited for today because I love this topic.
So without further ado, what we want to do, we want to welcome all our listeners to our guest, Stephanie Pinto. Now, Stephanie Pinto, before you come on, Stephanie, I want to make sure they know you're a multi-award-winning emotional intelligence specialist and inspirational speaker. She's the author of the best-selling book, From Chaos to Connection, and host of her own cool podcast that we got to be on recently called the Emotionally Intelligent Parenting Podcast. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. And I loved our episode. And we were just talking before we record. My husband came in at the end and you guys got to meet him and we got to chat. And so heaps of fun. I loved it.
Yes. Well, and a unique thing you can all notice, she's got an accent because Stephanie is from down under. She's from Australia. And so that means and
that's always super cool to us. We love Australian accents.
Yes, of course. And because she's so cool, we do these podcasts like late at night, just so she's awake and ready to go. So we're knocking this out at like 9, late at night for us, early for her. And so that way, then this
is us at 10 o'clock at night.
That's right. So we're going to do it. But, this is a unique podcast too, Stephanie, because Sara is passionate about this subject. And that's why I'm going to let her lead the interview. So you go right ahead.
Okay, right. You guys are you're gonna be pros. The stuff that I've heard on your podcast and the episodes that I've heard and our conversation last time, I'm like, man, I'm like preaching to the choir. You guys know this stuff, but anyway, it's still gonna be a great conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you're always learning and growing, and I want the reminders. I'm so excited about this.
Yeah.
So I want to kick it off with just what is, the basics. Let's not assume we know anything. What's emotional intelligence? Why is it important?
Okay, let's start there. So if I'm feeling a little bit kind of cheeky and funny, I go, you know what? It's just being smart with your emotions. When not a lot of us were taught how to be smart with our emotions. And that's kind of my story. I was probably the world's most emotionally unintelligent person for a long time. So I've definitely taken the journey myself and I'm still on it. But if we go into more of the, a bit more of an explanation, because this makes sense for people, is that being emotionally intelligent means we're able to be aware of our own emotions and those of others in the moment, and to use that information to be able to guide our actions, make good decisions, and adjust our behavior as we need to, right? In interactions or, so it's kind of that, I think a lot of the time people assume, and I did, when I first came across it, I was like, oh, okay, so I've got to know how to manage my emotions and frustration and anger and things like that. That's kind of half of the puzzle. Like, as I said, it's kind of being aware of my own emotions. Yes, I need to have that self-awareness. But then the awareness of other people's emotions, for me, it's my 2 kids who are 7 and 10, or it's my husband, or it's my in-laws, or it's my friends, or, colleagues. I actually have to have this ability to like pick up how they're feeling, what mood they're in, what's going on underneath their iceberg, so that I can, like I said, use that information to kind of deepen relationships, or get the best out of a conversation or a discussion with my kids about why not to leave their clothes on the floor. There's actually a whole lot kind of that goes on. And where I got trained, it was actually a place in the US. It's called the ISEI, which is Institute of Social and Emotional Intelligence. And what we learned there was that there was 26 individual like competencies or skill areas that make up emotional intelligence. So there's all these little sub-skills, and some of them are emotional self-awareness, stress management, resilience, communication, team building and building bonds. There's, obviously behavioral self-control and triggers, but there's 26. Like it's much more massive than people realize. And obviously I love it in terms of parenting and people who live and work with kids. Basically, I'm like, we need to start doing this stuff.
Well, it'd be so great. I mean, I think as you're talking, the first thing I was thinking for our listeners, I bet they can all, if they're struggling picturing what it looks like to be emotionally intelligent, I think they all can picture people they know who just are not. So just not emotionally intelligent. Those people who just can't read the room, or just can't seem to, like, I'm thinking of those people who just keep telling jokes when no one's laughing, or they keep talking when everyone's obviously done listening, and you're looking at them struggle. And that's when you go, that person needs some help with emotional intelligence, and I think all of us can see that deficit, but I hope it becomes more of a normal thing to see and understand what it looks like to be an emotionally intelligent person.
Yeah, 100%. You hit the nail on the head. Like, it's the people who just seem oblivious to what is going on, or, when you're trying to explain to someone something that's going on with you and it's really tough, and they're dismissive maybe, or they're like, it doesn't matter, it's just a job, it's 9 to 5, or, they're just kids, why are you so stressed? Like, they're not picking up that this is a real thing, or a big thing for you, let's say. I often say to people, you need to really understand that you cannot argue with anyone else's emotions or experience, full stop. Like, you might disagree. You might think, well, I wouldn't handle that, or I don't think that's a big deal. But man, you cannot argue with how someone else is experiencing something, because that, if you do, you're invalidating them. And unfortunately, we do this with our kids a lot. We say things like, it's a scratch, it's fine, it didn't hurt, or it was an accident, she didn't mean it. It's not itchy, just wear it. That's not spicy, just eat it. Like, you love this. So we're constantly kind of, and I've said all of these things. But I think it's really important to be able to recognize that if my emotions, let me rephrase that, other people's emotions and experience are as true for them as yours are for you.
That's so
right?
good.
Such a good reminder. I tell myself
that's a
every
good
day.
reminder. Write that down if you're listening to that. That's good. Okay.
Well, I love how kind of what you're talking about. It's really sort of being aware of the feeling, and then kind of being able to go inside and go, like, a thing can happen. So talking all over. Okay. A thing can happen. Let's say my daughter, I have to tell her twice to clean up her room or to do something. And I could be super annoyed by that, because my belief system is she should do it the first time I tell her, or she doesn't care about me. And so my feeling, it's like that. I have this belief system behind, or this trigger behind that, and being aware of those things, or he could have a completely different reaction.
Yeah.
He might have a different feeling. Maybe he's not bothered at all by it, or maybe he, is sad because he feels like, she just doesn't care. And so I just love how you point out an event can happen, a scraped knee or a spicy food or a child not doing what you asked them to do. But it's my belief, it's his belief, it's all those things behind that are part of that fuel of our feelings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So this is where it gets a little bit deeper than just knowing our own emotions. I love that you guys said this, really knowing your beliefs around the situation. Let's say not picking clothes up off the floor. We have those unconscious, or they've been programmed into us since we were little, sort of thing. And so if we don't recognize that those, I want to say, programs are running the show, we don't have that awareness that, oh, maybe it's like the ability to fathom that there's another way of being, or another way of doing things, or another way of responding, or just a different possibility. So I mean, me and my husband are a perfect example, because I came from an English background. My parents were from the UK and they immigrated out here to Australia in the 80s, had us. And my husband's family is from Portugal. And so the Portuguese are very emotional, explosive, and, they say what they think. And so we were like polar opposites. And we have really had to understand that we're mostly on the same page, but we get there through a different, a different path. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, so I think for me and for him, obviously, we are learning to notice our own emotions and notice when we're feeling triggered. Like, this is a big, kind of one of the cornerstones of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is the first piece.
Yeah.
Because once we have that awareness that, whoa, this is like bringing something up in me, or like you said, Sarah, I've asked you 2 times and you still haven't cleaned up your room, this is grinding my gears kind of thing. Once you're at that kind of level, then you can just notice what that is, basically how that is driving your behavior. You're either going to flip your lid and yell at her, or you're going to throw out a threat, like, fine, if you don't clean them up one more, and I have to ask you one more time, then you're not getting the iPad tonight. Like, we don't realize that our mood and emotions, our emotional state, and I like to think of the nervous system, whether or not we're regulated, and that whole scientific piece, because that just makes sense to me. I'm like, if I'm not kind of calibrated or, balanced, I am more likely to snap at my kids. I am more likely to blame my husband. I am, more likely to do this, less likely to be patient and tolerant and look beneath the iceberg at what's going on with my kids. So people don't realize, this is what I'm getting there. I'm trying to explain it. Yeah, people don't realize how much being attuned and aware of our emotions or not actually really drives our behavior and our language and the words we speak and our tone of voice and the body language stuff. Like, that makes or breaks relationships, that pushes people away. Like, I can push my husband away if I'm in a crappy mood. And then he gets cranky, and then it's like a power struggle or an argument, and then we just end up in same with my kids. So I'm like, guys, if we just have a little bit more awareness and of some, more mindful of our emotional state and our nervous system and what that's doing for us, then we can actually take steps to go, you know what, I'm not going to come back and mention your room again. I'm getting stressed. I need to go and have a cup of tea, or I need to go and, let's talk about this later, because I don't want to say something I regret and flip my lid. It's been a long day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Yeah, and since we're on we love we believe that parent first, we've got to do it before we can hand it off. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, well, how do I do that? And you even mentioned it, doing it with your husband, and that, it sounds hard enough to do it for myself, but so can you give us some ideas, like, how can I build that skill in myself to go, okay, this is what happened, this is how I feel, or this is the trigger, the belief. What steps do I take? Because then from what then it guides my behavior. So how do I change that dynamic?
Okay, so let me mention one of the quotes that came out of my book that people have really grabbed onto is that if if we want to raise emotionally intelligent kids, we must first become emotionally intelligent parents.
Yes.
Damn it.
Yeah.
It means we've got to work on ourselves. And, that's what
Right,
a lot of parenting and stuff is. It's reparenting and working on ourselves first. But that actually makes a lot of sense, because you can't give what you don't have. You can't teach what you don't know. And that goes the same, I think, for any skill, riding a bike or being a mechanic. You've got to be able to embody and know your craft in order to teach it. So anyway, to come back to kind of your question, I'm actually going to talk about one of the books behind me on my shelf is called Permission to Feel, and it's by Professor Mark Brackett. And it's all about emotional intelligence. And he is the founding director of Yale University's Center for Emotional Intelligence. So there is a whole organization center over there with you guys that is dedicated to the research and development of emotional intelligence for kids, for adults in the workplace, like schools, anywhere. So this stuff is it's no longer I want to say a buzzword and it's new. No, this is the future is emotionally intelligent is what I want to say. So anyway, in his book, he has this method that he describes, and I love it because it's really simple and easy to remember. And it's like an acronym. It's got 5 letters, and the word is ruler, as in a measuring ruler. I don't have one on my desk. And so he says, if we want to, what I kind of say is dial up our emotional intelligence and start to enhance that or work on it, not only for our benefit, but for our kids too. First, we have to, the R is be able to recognize how we're feeling in the moment. I don't know if you guys remember in that definition of emotional intelligence, I said to be aware of your own emotions and those of others in the moment and to use that information. So the 3 key words are actually in the moment, because when hindsight is 2020, we're like,
I know. You can always look back.
Kids,
Sometimes that's where you find yourself. You find yourself an hour later, you reflect and you go, oh, wait a second.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
In the moment, that's really tough.
I know.
It's so hard, right? So to be able to recognize how we're feeling in the moment means oh my goodness, there's a whole kind of work for us to do in order to be able to do that. So I like to encourage parents and kids. I teach my kids, I'm like, what does that feel like in your body when you're really mad because he hasn't given you the remote and he's chosen 2 shows in a row or episodes, and it's supposed to be your turn. So, and for me, it's my kids when they're not listening or whatever it is. So actually sensing that in your body, because so before I did emotional intelligence, I was a pediatric speech pathologist. I learned everything about the head and the neck.
Oh, I'm sure.
Cranial nerves, speech, voice, swallowing, fluency, everything. Did not learn that anything about the body and what that was doing for us in terms of sensations, interoception, the nervous system. So I was super cut off from my body. I was I don't know, I just get really angry and I snap.
That's right. No, and you feel helpless and powerless to it. It just happens to me. Yeah,
nothing we can do. So now I am so much more aware when I feel the hot, buzzy, tension, tight feeling, and that's when I'm getting I would say frustrated or feeling maybe I don't want to say angry, that's kind of a surface level emotion, but I can sense that I'm not being listened to, and that's frustrating for me, or I feel resentful maybe, and things like that. So noticing it in your body and that's a huge part of recognizing I'm feeling something here, or when those days you're just feeling a little bit bleh. And then, I've now come to realize, oh my God, it's because, grandma's been in hospital for a week and everyone's worried about her. That project I was looking forward to at work fell through. My husband, So recognizing is the first one. I know I went deep on that one. So the second part in ruler is then you understanding. So you stands for understanding. So understanding what happened, let's just say what happened that has made me feel this way, what has caused these emotions. It's almost like a path that you kind of follow. So I just said, grandma's been in hospital, or that project fell through, or my kids have left mess in the lounge room. So understanding and connecting how you're feeling to why. Because I swear a lot of us, this was me, have no idea what we're feeling or why. Sure. We just go. And we glorify being busy and doing all the things. And then we're oh, I think I'm burnt out, or I've got this, I've got to go to the doctor because I'm not feeling well.
Or a parent's not even aware of why they're snapping so much at the kids. It's like, well, dude, look at your day. Like you've been go. You're like exhausted,
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably another kind of, maybe we'll get to the R at the end, but thinking about that, what can I actually shift and change in terms of coping strategies?
Yeah.
So then the L in the middle is labeling. So labeling my emotions, not just happy, sad, angry, or stressed. How are you going? Oh, I'm really stressed. That's not even an emotion word. Or busy. So actually having more emotional granularity is what it's called. It's basically just having a more specific or more nuanced emotional vocabulary. Because there is so much research that shows if we are even just able to name specifically how we're feeling, like, oh, I'm feeling really down today, even though that's not an emotion, even just saying I feel really down or I'm feeling really stressed or distressed or upset or anxious, like even just naming it, that immediately decreases some of the intensity of the emotion because we've just acknowledged it. We haven't just jumped back into our emails or scrolled on our phone.
Just tried to avoid it.
Yes. So labeling it, and that's where the saying "name it to tame it" comes from. And there are emotion wheels online. I've got some on my website. If you just Google emotion wheel, you'll find one of mine has over 100 emotion words on it.
Wow.
But I was like, oh my God, what is astonishment?
Like, I know. And there's some really fun ones. Like our favorite one for our youngest is exasperated. I love that. Like that totally describes her go-to emotion. She's just like exasperated so often.
That's so cute. So that's L, labeling. And then E is expressing how we're feeling. So expressing the emotion. That kind of means like in the right way, at the right time, to the right person, or maybe it's just expressing it to myself. Because as you said, Kyle, before, we might just be snapping at our kids and like, you guys make me so angry. We're saying it to the wrong person. Sometimes I know that if I don't feel supported or I've been doing the lion's share for whatever reason, then the frustration with my husband, I take it out on my kids. Like that's not expressing it in the right way at the right time. Anyway, so being able to express how you're feeling in a respectful, non-blamey, shamey, judgmental way, but just saying, hey, I'm feeling really, overwhelmed at the moment and I've got a lot on, and can you help me out or whatever. Anyway, so being able to express it is the second last one. And then the last R is regulate.
Okay.
So kind of once we've done, once we've done all of those steps.
To get to that. Yeah. Typically, a lot of people just start there. I just need to regulate. And they're like, it's not working. Like it's maybe if you did the other steps first. That'd be more 100%.
Helpful. So regulating obviously is around what do I need right now? Like we can ask ourselves a set of questions or we can just think, how can I support myself to regulate some of these big stressful emotions or uncomfortable emotions I'm feeling? But some questions might be, what do I need right now? Or what is too much? What has been happening that's too much for me? What does my body need right now? What could I maybe take off my plate? Or what can I do in order to bring back some regulation or some calm or some clarity? So I kind of think of like almost two opposite, I don't know if they're opposite. Can I decrease my demands? Like what can I take off my plate? Or can I increase my capacity? Can I do more self-care? Can I, I don't know, take a day off once a month so I can do all my admin? I don't know. So I know that's really long and clunky.
No,
but
that's great. And I want our listeners to take a moment. Do you remember what the ruler stands for? Do you remember what they are? Because I want to take a stab at it. So it was recognize, understand, label, express, and then regulate.
Oh,
so those are the 5. So yes, yes, I did it. It's all, well, and you know what I like about those, Stephanie. I remember even my own growth from being not emotionally intelligent to becoming more. I remember this sounds silly, but one of the moments where I could see I was maturing or increasing my ability to understand this was it wasn't actually not yelling or not getting mad. It was actually, I was yelling. I was getting mad at the kids, but it was almost like I was having an out of body experience because I could see myself doing it. It was like happening in slow motion and I was still choosing to get mad and yell, but it was like successful that later that night I was like, wow, I I really could see that happening. And so if I could see it happening, it means maybe next time I could choose a different outcome, Whereas before it had happened so fast, it just felt like I wasn't choosing it. I felt like it was just, I was losing control. And so I was actually kind of a weird realization of like, that was successful, that I actually know I chose to still yell at the kids.
I love that. Yeah, but it can happen so fast, right? And
It
I
does.
think, at least I see this a lot online. This is a thing that a lot of parents struggle with, is managing their triggers and feeling like they just flip their lid at a moment's notice. So there's, and people say, what can I do? And and I'll be responding and stuff in my community. But as you can see, there's so many little moving parts before that that kind of go into it. I do want to say, reframing your internal sensations and experience is very powerful for when we feel like we're stressed or we're upset or we're our kids are not listening, or we're having to do the lion's share, or we're we're having some of these emotional reactivities, right? Reframing what we're feeling inside, because we can feel like the rising maybe in our chest of the anger and no one's listening, or I've asked you to put your clothes away twice, or you guys have left all your toys in the lounge room. Like, we can feel that, and we can go straight to I'm really angry because you're not listening, then we flip our lid. But if we can reframe what those sensations are meaning, if we can kind of, I think, Sarah, you said, like, we've got these stories and these unconscious, like these beliefs. If we can notice, whoa, that I can feel that rising, it feels really familiar. I'm gonna just exit for a second, or I'm gonna head out the back. I'm gonna notice what I'm feeling in my body, and I'm gonna just check, is there another way that I can think of or kind of add a story to what I'm actually feeling? Because I'm feeling the tension, and I know my kids haven't, done what they're supposed to have done maybe. But if we can, instead of think, well, that's because they are the worst kids and they're never helpful and they're little rats or something, if we can reframe it to go, it's because I haven't given my kids maybe I haven't given them the enough time to be able to do what they want to do, what they need to do. Maybe I've asked them at the wrong time. They're in the middle of the show. Maybe we need to recreate the routines and the ritual of like tidying up every night before we all go to bed and head off to our rooms. I don't know.
Maybe I haven't been consistent enough or intentional enough. So
I think reframing, rather than just going down that like the same track, is really, really helpful. But it takes some curiosity and some patience. The way that this wasn't mine, and I can't remember where I've heard it, but a really great kind of, I guess, metaphor or analogy is that if you think about when we are constantly flipping our lid, or we're getting frustrated at what is, if you think of like a car driving over a beautiful fresh meadow of grass, stick with me. If you drive the car the same way again and again and again, what happens to the grass is that it gets worn down into the dirt.
It gets those indentions.
It creates tracks, right? Pretty soon, you don't even have to like steer the car. You can hands off the steering wheel. It'll just go that way because you've created those paths. Obviously, this is the same thing as the neural pathways in the brain. We have these habits, and the brain is built on habits. So it is very difficult to, the first time or the first couple of times, notice that you're going down that way and your kids have left the clothes out, or they've made a mess in the kitchen, and you're like, "Arr!" And then you think, hang on, I don't want to just yell, like I'm working on this. And I'm noticing it is really bloody hard to like turn the steering wheel when you're going halfway down that path and go, ugh, and get it up onto the fresh grass and do a left turn. That's really hard. But the thing is, the more you do it, and get some support, listen to podcasts like this, and just fill your mind with, okay, this is what we're doing. This is meaningful for me, and I know it's a really that it's so beneficial. That will become easier and easier, and then those pathways get worn down into the dirt, and then that becomes your go-to. And the cool thing is that the other tracks in the grass or the mud, like they will grow over eventually. So it's like just rewiring your brain. I'm talking about obviously plasticity and neuroplasticity and just changing behavior. So it can be done, but I think if we just look at the neuroscience, it requires repetition. It requires some support from people around us. obviously not listening to maybe friends or family who are well-intended, but that they might not have the best advice around punishments and consequences. It's trusting that this is how you want to do it. You want to listen to your kids' emotions, you want to honor your own emotions, and you want to work with them that way, respectfully and in an emotionally intelligent way. So yes, I just want to I think that's really good.
I love that, because I think, we have experienced this ourselves, in different ways, where his well-worn tracks were some sort of anger outburst, some sort of upset feeling, right? And even sometimes there was something else behind that, but we don't know that till we jump off the tracks. Mine would be more like, I just bury it, stuff it, continue on, put your head down and keep working. And all of those things, and whatever your well-worn track is, just doesn't serve you, right? It's not serving us. It wasn't serving our family. And it is so hard to redo those tracks, because, man, you got years in there driving those tracks. So I just love the encouragement you provide, that you really can shift it. And it will be hard. And I know, I want to kind of circle back around to, I don't know, I would like to ask how you and your husband, because I know we have been a source for that, but that's also been hard because my tracks are so different than his tracks. Like how can that work in a dynamic if you're parenting with someone and we're like, okay, we want to raise our emotional intelligence, because it's kind of easy for me to go, you're heading down those same tracks again, and vice versa, but how could that work in a relationship?
Oh, that never happens to us. Okay. So I'm going to take a bit of a left turn.
Okay.
My ability and his to develop our emotional intelligence, not just with how we deal with the kids and those emotional moments and frustrations, I've actually come to realize, kind of as we were saying before, so my husband's, that other person's experience and perspective is as true for them as mine is for me. I can't will him to come over to my side and do things like I do. Number one, he doesn't have I was a pediatric therapist for 10 years. And then I've learned, I have dived into emotional intelligence for a further 5. I cannot expect him to see situations with the kids the same as me, because he hasn't got that background. He hasn't got the programming, right? He's coming from, like I said, a Portuguese family, and all the melting pot and programming that came with that. So of course we're going to see things differently. We're going to have a different perspective. So if and when he is a little firmer on the kids or a little bit too harsh, in my opinion, now, which obviously has, we've balanced.
Of course.
Let's say he was up here and I was down here, and we've come towards this beautiful middle part. There are still moments where I'm sure he's like, you shouldn't have let the kids, why are you packing up? That's their mess. So we still have those moments.
Yeah.
But I can much more quickly look at how he deals with the situation and me and go, yep, that makes sense. No wonder. I get why he did that. If I was him, I would do the same and think, no, the kids can't do that, or you need, that's not okay. So, and vice versa. So it's kind of being emotionally intelligent is, and we're not perfect, by the way, is having that ability to see the other person's background, their programming, their tracks, their emotions, their mood. If he's had one heck of a day where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, I'm going to give him grace for that and compassion, and be like, you know what, go chill on the computer, I'll bring you dinner and we'll play with kids later. Do you know what I mean? So it's less, I just think having this awareness breeds a whole lot more patience and compassion and tolerance and understanding, rather than what do you, I've been at work too, get in here, bath the kids, hello, now I'm you know what, it's okay.
Well, I was going to say, I think you used a word that has been so important to us, which is curiosity. You talked about that earlier, about being curious. And that's where Sara has helped me, and I believe I've helped her as well, to understand and become more emotionally intelligent by asking curious questions. Sara would just be like, how did you see that? Or when you said that, what was going on in you? What was it that you were telling yourself in that moment? And just it helps the other person reflect upon it and therefore become more aware and be able to like recognize it and then go, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. I wasn't even asking myself those questions. I was jumping right to that track, that well-worn track. And these questions now you're asking me are helping me see what's underneath all that and what's kind of guiding that. And so I think that's really been a really helpful for her to ask those questions with grace, with patience, and understand that this is what a marriage is. It's us helping us each other grow together to benefit our kids in the long term.
Yeah, I just think that is so beautiful, and it takes work, as I know you guys know. And something that popped into my mind as you were speaking, Kyle, it's a bit off track, but when we can appreciate and even learn, like I didn't know this as a therapist, that our kids' brains are not fully developed until the late 20s, research is now showing, particularly that part of the brain, which, as you guys know, the prefrontal cortex, which does all this emotional regulation stuff and does all the problem solving and does all the conflict resolution. That stuff is not fully online for our kids. And like I said, mine is 7 and 10. Even if your kids are 15 or 18, you know, we cannot expect our kids to be able to regulate and handle their emotions maturely all the time, or even part of the time. It's like expecting a traveler to, give them half of the map and expect them to get to the destination.
Totally.
Like that's wild. And so it's just a good reminder for me, and maybe for everyone else, to think, how old is my child? I don't know how much, I don't know the exact neuroscience of how much of emotional regulation they should have, or how much empathy, but I know that it is not fully developed. It's not mastered. It's not totally online. And mine, because I'm like past my late 20s, I'm in my 30s. So I don't have my SHIT together all the time either. And I have no excuse. I have a fully developed brain, and I still flip my lid, and I still melt down over a little thing, and I have my moments. So then I look at my kids and I'm like, no, I go from thinking like, what's wrong with you? Or you're being ridiculous, or why are you being so dramatic? And then I'm like, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yep, you're going to melt down over the blue cup, not the red cup. And I don't need to take it personally, because that's just, you're doing the best you can with the brain you have.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've said all the time, I just think, well, okay, they've only been on this earth 8 years or something, like it just helps me, because we can get all upset, and then to think, wait a second, they've only had 8 years to run through this thing, or, however many years. And so of course it kind of helps relieve some of the steam or pressure or things that we're feeling, it's like we give them a break. We need to give them a break. And I love that reminder. And I find in myself that just helps me not be quite so upset, or so whatever the feeling is. Because I think, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. That thing, that part of their brain, it's still warming up. It's still getting going, and then of course we still struggle. So I love that reminder. And it kind of so if we're thinking, all right, my child's EQ, it needs to be developed. How, as a parent, can we support that development? Because we're hoping, man, by the time you're 28, I hope I can do my part to help that grow and help that develop.
Yeah. Okay. So part of me does always want to give a bit of a disclaimer in the sense of, we know our child's brain has to take time to develop, especially through the teenage years. So in that sense, we're kind of almost like capped and limited. Like we can't expect, okay, I'll do all the things and I'll print off all the emotion wheels and the resources and we'll have a conversation about emotions and feelings and behavior every night. And then like we're ticking all the boxes. Like we just have to like accept and honor that they're kids, and that they're not going to get it right all the time. Most of the time they might not get it right, and that's okay.
There's a piece of time that just has to happen.
Yes. So that, like you said, Sarah, that kind of takes the pressure off, so that we don't, we're like, okay, well, that's this, they're acting how they're supposed to be acting.
And we're not failing.
Yes.
Definitely not. So a couple of things. We talked a bit about emotional vocabulary. So there are lots of resources and stuff online, but I tend to think, books are amazing if you have younger kids and you're into reading books before bed. They're great. But also just modeling how you are feeling and what's going on in your life. Like age appropriately. They don't need to know all the details of the work project and whatnot. But I think too often we don't voice or vocalize how we're feeling. We just like shove it down. We get on with our work. We don't have time, and, keep calm, carry on, that kind of mentality. But actually, if we can be a little bit more open and have these conversations with our kids over a sandwich at lunch, or taking them to soccer in the car, and just having those conversations, it's almost like talking out aloud, which is kind of beautiful in the sense of like that's developing your own emotional self-awareness and ability to be mindful. But yeah, we're modeling it for our kids too. Asking them questions at the end of the day, like the tuck-in time for us. We don't always eat dinner together. Like, we've got different things happening, but tuck-in time is when kids, like, their brain opens up. The whole world, like, they want to chat. They don't want to go to bed. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's run with that and, talk about what's happening and how you're feeling and, things like that. I think the other thing is, as we kind of talked about, noticing how it feels in their body and connecting that to emotions. So I remember having a girl that I worked with. A little part of my work is doing anxiety therapy for kids. And she was always really worried that she was going to be sick or vomit at school, because one time about a year ago, she had this milky drink from the school, and then it obviously didn't sit well with her and she was unwell. So we were teaching her, me and her mum were teaching her basically interoceptive awareness, which means being aware of the internal sensations coming from within your body. So that could be like butterflies, it could be bathroom needs, it can be heart rate, it can be emotions, it can be temperature, body temperature and sweating and things like that. So we were teaching her, like, what are some of those gurgly or butterfly wriggly feelings mean? Well, it could mean that you might vomit or you're unwell. It could mean that you're hungry. It could mean that you need to go and do a poo. Expanding kids' awareness of what they're feeling in their body and what the potential reasons could be. Maybe they're coming down with a cold, maybe they're, something else. So I think having conversations with kids about that. And Kyle, you said the word curious. I don't know if you said it, or but that curiosity with, I wonder how that person's feeling, or I wonder why she did that, or I wonder why he said he won't let you play with those. I remember with my two kids, they were fighting over a balloon of all things, and we had like a packet in the cupboard. And my daughter didn't want to let her brother use the balloon, and he was getting really frustrated. And so without swooping in, I let that go for a little bit to see if they could, resolve it. They couldn't. So I went in, and then it turned out that my daughter was not going to let him have a turn of it and like play, with the balloon. And so I thought, okay, without manipulating the situation, because we often think, well, no, they need to share, or they're not being fair, or
we come in with our agenda.
And so, and I said to her, can you see like that he's basically jumping up and down and his cheeks are all red and he looks pretty angry, huh? And she was like, yes, but she didn't care at that point. And then I said, well, I get that he really wants a balloon. I get that it's yours, so I'm not going to force you to share it, because she found it and blew it up, I think. And I said, but the thing is, I know that he had a brand new scooter for his birthday like a couple of months before, and she loved to use it and loved to hop on it, and like he would let her most of the time because he also has a little BMX bike. And I said, I just want you to think about, because this is me trying to teach them like the impact of your actions on others. That's a thing, right? The less that you share or are kind to another person, they don't really want to help you. They don't want to be around you. Like, that's just natural. And so I said, I wonder if, if you share it with him or don't share it with him, is he going to be more or less likely to let you use his scooter that you've been using all week because you love it, and, I know you like going up and down the driveway. So I was just trying to help her to see, hey, notice how he's feeling. Think one further step. If I don't let him use the balloon and don't share it, then is that going to work out well for me or not? And on the flip side, and so I was trying to be like Switzerland. I was trying to be unbiased, but also I wanted her just to think, no, I'm not going to, like, that is yours and you don't need to share it, but no, there are impacts, or there are, consequences of whether you do or don't do things. Without making consequences a dirty word. So so she actually did end up, she said, okay, well, and I said, you could just give him like what's the word? Parameters.
Yeah.
I said, maybe you could just say, look, you can use it for a minute, and then give it back to me, or as long as you don't pop it, then you can play with it. So she did. I can't remember what she picked, but she kind of gave her rules, and then they resolved it together. But if you think about like the amount of brain power that took,
Yes.
even
Yes.
yeah, and she might have been 6 or 7, 6 at the time. Oh my goodness, we cannot expect kids to have that level of conflict resolution and like situational awareness, and like managing her own emotions. I blew this up, it's mine, and I don't want like that's wild to like. No wonder there are sibling arguments and challenges, because they just don't have that capacity, the sophisticated capacity yet to manage their emotions and speak consider others' emotions. So
well, and Stephanie, to be honest with you, lots of adults don't either. So I mean that's really why a lot of people, everyone who's listening, like you're surrounded by adults who don't know how to resolve those conflicts, and even in their own life. So that's why they have to constantly cut out friends, or they have to like isolate themselves from people who they can't get along with, because they don't know how to deal with that interchange, that interpersonal, kind of conversation that's happening. And what I think is so cool when you do this type of parenting approach, where you are wanting to grow in your emotional intelligence, not only do you help your kids get like tracks worn in their brain that are more positive and more helpful and healthy, but you're actually then doing it to your own brain too. And what I've noticed, then it helped as I did it with the kids every day, because they give you opportunities 100 times a day, then you get to, it starts working in your extended family. It starts working in those conflicts that you never thought could be resolved, or it starts helping you with friendships that you're having disagreements with. And it's really cool how the kids can help you as you practice with them, just get really more emotionally intelligent and getting those skills in place to where then you can do that with other people. And I just think it's really powerful for them, and it helps equip them to handle any conflicts they're going to have with their boss in the future, or future marriage conflicts, all those kind of things.
Yeah, you're right that it is like emotional intelligence is for anyone, any age, kids, adults, workplace, home. I actually often say that the home and the family is like a mini workplace. Like it's you've got to be a team. Yeah. So I like that you mentioned that, because it's just if we're not, I think it's reaches into every single relationship. And I would like to see a whole lot more emotional intelligence in like schools and daycares and preschools. Like, I just think that would be what kind of a world would we have in the next generation. That's exciting.
And I know one of the things that comes up a lot, and maybe we can wrap up with this, is when you are doing this, I think there's always this group of people who get afraid that if you're talking about feelings all the time, that you raise these kids who are just going to blow away with the wind, and they're going to be so like constantly emotionally dysregulated and crying about everything. And so you're going to raise entitled, spoiled kids. So I'm sure you get that pushback. So kind of can you give kind of your response to that fear that comes up in parents? Because even like
we're talking about feelings all the time.
Yeah. And even like though Sarah and I do this for a living, where we talk to kids about feelings, there are times where I'm like, come on, just like get over it. I'm kind of done with this whole talk about like, can't we just grow up and get over it? And I'll go back to that track in my mind, right? And I'll be like, enough of this. We talked about the feelings long enough, right? So what is your response to that when people give that pushback?
I get it so often.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I get it like, from parents, and I get it on definitely social media, especially Instagram. Oh my goodness. And I think, why are these people on my Instagram if they really hate this like emotional intelligence anyway? But I think what people don't realize is that being emotionally intelligent or teaching kids about emotions doesn't mean we're sitting in our emotions all day and discussing them and not moving on. Like the power of emotional intelligence, and really that when it's, I want to say like done right, for want of a better word, is we're teaching our kids, let's say the ruler kind of acronym. That last part is regulating. It's knowing how to process, like how to deal with your emotions, how to accept them so that you're not shoving them down, and how to process and release them, and then move on with your day. Set boundaries if you need to. Think, no, that's made me really frustrated, and it's the second week now, I'm going to have a word with my boss. Like, so having conversations, moving through it, making changes. Like I said, if we go right back to the start and the definition, it's using that information
Yeah.
to guide your actions, to make good decisions, and to adjust your behavior like on the
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
So it's really building this resilience, which is not like a stoic, I'm cold-hearted and I'm like, this John Wayne kind of, I don't know if that's the right person. That mentality, it's going, no, we're gonna acknowledge it.
Yes.
We're gonna learn from it. We're gonna move through it so that we have a successful life. I reach my goals that I want. I work hard and I contribute and things like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely the complete opposite of, I guess, this concept of permissive parenting where we're raising snowflakes. So, and there is, as I said, Professor Mark Brackett's only one sort of center or organization that's looking at and doing all this research. Not a shred of evidence that shows when we bring emotional intelligence into a family or a childhood daycare center or a school that parameters or outcomes drop. Like I think some of the research off the top of my head is that obviously self-awareness increases, behavioral self-control, ability to manage our strong behaviors increases. Even things like kids do better on academic testing when their emotional intelligence increases because they're able to handle and manage test anxiety. Or my parents have, talked about splitting up, and so they're able to deal with those feelings and then do what they need to do in the classroom or out and about. And there's tons of research in the workplace. Even one of them is that people with a higher EQ will go on to earn 33% more in their career than lower EQ counterparts. Brings team cohesiveness and productivity, and it's just, you fall down a rabbit hole when you're looking at how amazing the research is.
It is amazing. I mean, I know because I worked with so many kids who were traumatized, so emotions are big, and people either think they're going to explode, right? Or you stuff them. And emotional intelligence, how much it's actually be able to be aware of what's going on. Yeah. So I don't explode. I don't stuff. I'm actually able to now choose something. I'm able to choose my path forward. Yeah. And I can think about my path forward for me and the people around me, my classroom, my coworkers, adult or child. You're then actually, the emotional awareness isn't, like you said, to sit in the muck of it and stay stuck there, but you can now actually move forward somewhere you want to go. And it's just, the outcomes are just amazing. I'm so glad we got to hear you. And
well, and if I can give a quick picture to add to what you said, I'm stealing this from Dr. Cohen, where he talks. It's a technique I like to do with kids that I think speaks to exactly what you're saying. Is lots of times when kids are overwhelmed and they're emotionally dysregulated, it's like the emotions driving the car and the kid is the passenger. Okay. And so that's not what we want. We don't want the emotion driving the vehicle, but lots of us are taught to just kick that feeling out and then take over the car, and we think the feeling left, but it didn't. It's just hiding under the hood, or it's blocking the windshield. And so it still is there. It's still causing a disruption. So really, to me, emotional intelligence is teaching the kid to move the feeling where it's supposed to be. And that's just in the co-pilot. It's supposed to be in the passenger seat. And so the kid's driving the car, and they're with curiosity looking at the feeling and saying, what are you doing here? Is there something you need to tell me? Right. And then we can listen. So I started doing that for myself when I would get really anxious or overwhelmed with things, running the business or parenting. And I just would get curious as to what the feeling's trying to say. And once I listened to it, it would go away. And that's the whole reason why I was there. It was just trying to give me some helpful information. It actually wasn't there trying to crash the car.
Oh, I love that. Maybe I'll steal that secondary.
That I think it's from Dr. Cohen's book, Opposite of Worry. And I've actually sat with our own kids or with kids I'm helping. We'll act like we're in a car and we'll move it over. And it's really cool when the kid says, what do you hear? And I'll say, what did the feeling tell you? It's really interesting what they'll come about, but it's really helping them erase, because I'm thinking there was a time, the example when I used it was when COVID was first happening. And of course, my business is based on seeing people face to face. I was really anxious that we were going to lose the business. And so I was walking up and down the hallway where my office is. And I was curious. I was saying, hey, anxiety, what are you here to tell me? And I felt like anxiety said to me, you can't control this outcome. You can't make this successful. And I looked at it and I thought, I never could. Like I never could. Before COVID hit, before any of this stuff, I didn't have control over any of it. I thought I did. And actually, this is really helpful that I remind myself that I don't, because then I can let go of it. And it was actually very freeing to just listen in that moment. And then I just sat there. Is there more anxiety? And if there was, I just kept, what else do you want to say? And I just kept doing that. So I just think that's a really cool practice to help raise a little kid's self-awareness by just acting like you're in a vehicle. And then I think it's a good picture of like, we don't want a world where everyone's having the feeling driving in like a crazy person around, Makes sense.
Oh, that is so good. Okay, that's the last takeaway then, is to ask the feeling or ask the emotions that you're feeling. Like, what are you trying to tell me? What are you here to say?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and so Stephanie, it's been awesome having you on. How can they find out more about all the awesome work you're doing to help people and help parents?
So probably one of the easiest places is my website, because that's just my name. So stephaniepinto.com. I have a Facebook community, and that's called Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids. So you're more than welcome to join that. That's a public group. Yeah. And on Instagram, I'm at emotionally.intelligent.parent. And then, like you said, we have the episode that you guys did on my podcast. Yeah. So people and
you're also consistently putting together these summits with great experts throughout the world. So definitely, if you follow her, you'll get these access to these free trainings that other experts are doing and sharing more info. So definitely get on there, follow Stephanie, and support this work. And let's all try to become more emotionally intelligent people.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. And thank you all the way across the pond. Thank you for showing up. So
thank you for staying up late.
Well, and I hope you have a great day, which is our tomorrow. So in the future, I hope you have a great day. Okay.
Thank you.
The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.